afternoon. I'm most happy to be here. My co-panelists, friends, thank you for inviting me here. I have been in your country for the last week and touched by the kindness of your taxi drivers, your felucca owners, really touched by the kindness of strangers who've invited me into their homes, who've given me tea and made me feel so much at home in this lovely country, which I have wanted to visit only from the time I was 5, I think. I had read a small translation of a small book that was given to me by an uncle. And from then, Egypt has been this dream, which I thought I would have to wait for an afterlife to visit. And then we had the letter from Helen, and I really thank from the bottom of my heart Lingua and all their partners for giving me this opportunity of a lifetime. Thank you. Shukran. Katha means story in most of the Indian languages, and when I look at the title of the seminar, Linguistic Diversity, Globalization and Development, I wish I had the 100,000 children that we work with in Qatar, the 50,000 women who are with us this year, with me here, and I'm sure you would have been flooded with at least 200,000 questions. What is linguistic diversity? What is globalization? And what is this thing that you call development? Today, I would like to talk about development, and I would like to talk about the connections that development has with linguistic diversity, and of course with globalization, which makes all of us the same, and all of us not so much the same if we think of celebrating the differences that we have between us. In 1988, when I started Katha, we began with 2 questions. What do you do with a country? What do you do with a country which has more than 1,600 mother tongues? 1,600 mother tongues, which people speak in, and about 400 languages, 400 plus, in which they joke and they talk and they make love in and do business in. And the other question which came alongside with it very, very quickly was what you do with 440 million children in our country in the 0 to 14 age group who are just coming into literacy. Many of them come from homes which are not literate. Many of them are living in poverty. Many of them, if they manage to go to school, would go into a government school which would teach them in their mother tongue. It seemed like it would be extremely difficult for them to get globalized. How do you become a globalized citizen? As my friend from Mozambique had said, if you don't know the language, if you don't know the language of globalization, what do you do? What do you do without English? And in a country like India, it is extremely challenging to create a culture, a community of cultures, because of the many, many languages that we have. I mean, it is an amazing linguistic map that we have. We have about 1576 mother tongues, 14 major scripts. Many times I cannot read the script of a culture which is just 200 kilometers away from me, from the place where I stay. I know what they are saying, but I cannot read what they have written. The functions, the festivals that they celebrate might be celebrated for a completely different reason from the reason why I am celebrating that same festival on the same day. There are so many differences that unite India and bring us together. 122 languages with more than 10,000 native speakers, about 415 languages which have been, as I said, which have their own speakers and a lot of activity going in it. 50 languages with literatures, poems being written, fiction being written, a lot of criticism being written in about 50 languages. We are looking at 22 national languages, with English being an official language but not a national language. Hindi is the other official language, but it is also one of our national languages. We have 33 languages used in our schools, 101 languages in which we bring out our magazines and newspapers, and we have 146 languages in which our radio programs and our TV programs happen. It seems like we seem to be doing pretty well, but it seems like we have a very, very long way to go. So when in 1988 I was looking at what is it that we can do, what are the very, very uncommon issues that seem to be facing us, it seemed like there was a need for uncommon creativities for a common good. What could these be? These are some of the scripts that you see on the side. And we thought in Katha story, we thought if we could bring in story, then chances are that we would be in a position to bring in a lot of the things that we are concerned about: linguistic diversity, cultural diversity, the ecological diversity that we are all very, very concerned about. What is going to happen in the lives of our children if global warming becomes a reality, if climate change becomes a reality? How do they get to cope with these large issues, even when they are learning to become literate, even when they are beginning to read and move from a very, very oral tradition into a very, very written tradition? So these were some of the challenges that we really faced. And we started off with translation. The main objective of Katha was to enhance the joy of reading. And I thought very naively that we could make books. And we made some lovely books. We started off with the Katha Prize Stories, which were award-winning books, award-winning stories from many 21 Indian languages. But it didn't seem to be enough. What is the point of saying you'll enhance the joy of reading if you didn't have enough people who could read? I mean, you had to have readers, right, if you wanted to have, to enhance the joy of reading, and that we did not have. So it seemed like very, very quickly we had to move into working with children, and in 1990 we started the first school with 5 children. Today, as I said, we have 100,000 children in our 48 learning centers. We have children who are beginning to read at grade level and beginning to read for fun. And for this, I think we need books, we need translations, we need to bring them into understanding that the world that they live in, thank you, that the world that they live in is not just Delhi, it is not just the place that they live in, it's just not Haryana. But it is a very, very large and complex society that we are living in. I just want to give a very small example of one of the linguistic groups. We work with about nearly 20 linguistic groups, Katha, when we are looking at education. And when we are looking at translations, we are looking at about 21 plus another 10 which come from the oral traditions, mostly from the northeast of our country, about 31 languages from which we translate and we present to the whole country. I would like to talk about Arunachal Pradesh, which was brought up by Chris and reminded me of our children in Arunachal Pradesh. So I think I'm not going to show you any more of the slides that we have over here, but come to our children in Arunachal Pradesh and the books that we've done from there. The Lisu tribal people that we work with are commercial hunters. That means that anyone can go to this very, very rich Namdapa reserve that we have and ask them to catch a very rare butterfly with specific markings for maybe 100 rupees, which would be less than probably $2, and they will bring it to you because they are at the edge of poverty. They really need to survive, and survival means that the huge ecological wealth that they live in the midst of is of no consequence to them. The languages that they live in the midst of, it's one of the richest linguistically diverse parts of our country, is of no consequence if they cannot make a living. Our children are learning in their own mother tongue, but they also would be very, very happy to learn English. They want to learn English. They want to become part of this world, the fast globalizing world. So the question that we normally have in Qatar is, what do you do? What do you do when you have so many children who want to learn English? Does it mean that the diversity which we have today will go? Does it mean that if 50 to 60 languages are going to disappear in the next probably 50 years, it doesn't matter because we have 1,600 languages, and so it's okay for us to lose 50, 60 languages. So I think the kind of questions that come up when we look at India and we look at the wealth, the abundance that India has, are difficult to manage, difficult to put together, because on one hand is the abundance, and on the other hand are the issues and the problems and the challenges that we face. We have been looking at children below the age of 6. Many of them will be, by 2030, they are going to be the ones who are going to be in the workforce. They are the ones who are going to be groping with all the challenges that we are discussing today. All the issues of linguistic diversity, ecological diversity, what's going to happen with global warming, what happens if certain parts of our country and other countries are going to be submerged, what's going to happen? We probably are not going to be there to address these questions, but definitely our children are going to be addressing them. And the challenge that we face in this global seminar is, as I have seen many of my colleagues mention children and talk about children, is our responsibility to our children, our responsibility to this global, to this planet, and to see if we can think of Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu, which means may all life forms on earth be in peace. And I think linguistic diversity and the way we look at languages and we look at our cultures and the cultural diversity is just one way of protecting our planet, one way of looking at how we can keep every living form and every living language alive and happy. Thank you.